So, hey everybody, I am terribly sorry about that. We were streaming the last like 2 or 3 minutes or like I'll actually say the last 5 or 10 minutes or so, but at some point my finger went across the screen or something, hit stop streaming, so we are actually going to restart here very shortly. Sorry about that again. Yeah, I just fucked up. Two. All right, guys, we are back. I am very sorry about that. Don't know what happened, but hey, stuff happens, and so we screwed up. This is Crowdsourced Politics. I'm the host and moderator, Anthony Strain. For anybody that might be joining us afterwards or coming into the future, we are a political debate group, political debate podcast that was spawned out of a political debate community on Facebook under the same name of Crowdsourced Politics. Today, I am joined by Art Black,
How's it going?
Dylan Capdevilla,
Hey, hey.
Mateo DeGaulle,
Hey, what's up?
and Sean Dixon.
Yo.
And today we are going to share our thoughts and opinions and what we think the political ramifications will be from the George Floyd protests, the riots that have happened from in conjunction with, I would say, the protest and his tragic killing. So with that, let us go ahead and start talking about some of the stuff that we as a group have participated in. Art, I know that you were at a protest today. If you could tell us a little bit about your experience, that would be great.
I was at a protest today. It was a very organized, mellow, well-run affair. Everyone kind of showed up. There was a good energy. A lot of, I think, a lot of locals, and then some folks from outside. I'd probably say it was about 80% local, and then maybe 20% folks from out of town, who I think were the ones who were organizing a lot of the events. But yeah, basically, we all got together at kind of a square by the pier. Got fired up for a while, marched up and down the streets, just kind of due to the local geography. We just basically walk up and down the beach. And aside from one car speeding through that tried to run people over, and he got arrested shortly thereafter, it was very mellow. So there's no rioting, no platoons of Antifa, taking out the bars at the beach. So it was very,
So only one count of attempted murder then.
Right. Yeah. And it actually wasn't us. So, it was, remains to be seen. I mean, Arizona plates, so I'm not making any judgment, but so we'll see.
That's not cool. I was also at a protest. I attended the protest at the Texas Capitol grounds in Austin. Same thing. Everybody was. I mean, it was tense, but it wasn't overly dramatic. It wasn't. There was no untoward actions towards either the police or. Towards the police or any violent destruction of property. There was a couple of people that spray painted some stuff, which is bad, but all things considered, not that big of a deal considering, things have broken out into riots because of
violence. That's violence against property there, Anthony.
It is violence against property. Yes. But still, everything considered, I would consider the protest to be fairly successful, in the sense that it wasn't, like I said, nothing terrible happened. There was one incident at the protest where a man that had clearly some sort of mental issue, what tried to cross into the police lines, but an officer came over to the wall. If you have ever been to the the Capitol grounds in Texas. There's like a stone wall that kind of goes around it. He was going to climb over the wall, but the police officer or state trooper, I don't know which, came over and just like gently walked him back to the wall and stopped him from coming over. So that was good. Art, you had a question?
Oh, are we up on Twitch?
Yes.
Okay, because I don't see us.
What do you mean?
It's rolling for me.
Okay.
Do you have it playing, Art? Or is it paused?
I'll fiddle with it. As long as you guys see it, we're good.
It's working
Yeah,
for me.
it's
There we go.
all right, cool. I mean, hey, we got to ask these questions because I screwed up. So
Okay, here we go.
but yeah. So yeah, that was my experience. I was there from about 7 o'clock or so to about 10 o'clock or so. The kind of people that were out there were kind of ran the gamut. Oh, thanks. Scott, thanks, man. Thanks for follow. Appreciate it. Everybody that was there, I mean, there was a bunch of white people. It kind of ran the gamut of race. Definitely black people kind of leading the protest, taking the mic, so to speak. There was a couple people with there was a loudspeaker, some people with bullhorns that were just telling people kind of what's up. And the most important thing to share with this, from my experience, was that there was actually people going around and telling others to not start shit. A couple of people were going around and saying, like, you're dishonor your mother if you throw anything at the cops. Like, I mean, they were being a little silly with it, but the point was, like, don't start shit. Shit won't happen. Just be cool, you know? So I thought that was
Fuck
really
you
good.
say about my mama?
We had a couple instances where people would, because different people who were leading chants. So our town is demographically about 82% white, and then another 7% white, and then another 4% white, and then like 2% other. So we have a, it's an interesting kind of vibe there, because it was basically reflected. I almost feel like it was more white than the town itself. Like it was it was an interesting vibe at the march, but people get really fired up, and there was a couple chants that were, a little bit maybe too spicy for the crowd, as far as like to the degree to which we wanted to f the police. And it was funny because like the crowd was really, really fired up, and then like it would go a certain direction, and the crowd would get like quiet, and then the chant would go the other direction, and the volume would come back up. So there's even some like teenagers next to me who was like, yeah, I don't know about that one.
Wow. Yeah, just to kind of like bring home the point. The kind of people that were at the one in Austin, there was definitely some of the socialist leaning people there. There had the red rose, kind of standing in solidarity. There was two people with shields, which was kind of weird, because when I see a shield, I think, oh, alt knights, but these guys, like, one was clearly like socialist leaning because of the insignia on his shield would screamed socialist, and the other person just was standing there and protesting. So
you mean like base stickman from back in the day?
That's the name I was thinking of.
Yeah. Like, there's definitely some cross pollination going on there with tactics and shit. But yeah,
that's
interesting. I just thought it was interesting. Yeah, it was really,
what the fuck?
It was really weird.
Yes.
Base stickman's not so based anymore, though, right?
No, but that's that was his name. So
yep. So I think that kind of just goes over that. Nobody else was at a protest, right? Just to make sure.
I was not. However, there were some riots in my neighborhood Saturday night that I slept through, mostly.
What?
Mostly.
Are the cornfields all right?
Okay, so first of all, smartass, I'm not in a cornfield. I'm in as in Iowa, University of Iowa professor put it, in a Mississippi slum town. My neighborhood's about half black. In Iowa. I know, surprise, surprise. It's like one of the 5 black neighborhoods in the entire state, so that's interesting. And kind of there's the East Village right over near here, which is kind of the bar neighborhood in from where I'm at. But it's a weird mix, because it's where I'm at, like where my house is at. If you go 1 block south of here, it's literally like gated mansions along the Mississippi, and then if you go 1 block north of here, it's just like $30,000 houses. It's like historic black neighborhood kind of ghetto, right? So there's literally just like one street where it's like a line, and I'm right on that street. So yeah, there were some riots down here. A couple people died in the city. Thankfully, not like outside my house, but on the other side of town. And a bunch of people arrested down here this weekend.
Okay. Well, thank you for sharing the stuff that happened in your area. Mateo, you said while we weren't streaming that you were going to go, but decided against it for safety reasons.
I mean, I'll say safety reasons because it makes me sound responsible, but I'm just lazy.
Okay.
Nice.
I mean, hey, gotta be honest. It's better that way. And Sean, you said that you had to work, correct?
Yeah, I work overnight. So if I wanted to go, I don't really know anyone else that would have gone.
Okay.
Yeah, it's probably best not to go by yourself.
Well, I did, so
I have the proper gear. Like, I have a real gas mask. Like,
oh yeah,
I would have been all right.
Real gas mask, riot shield, everything.
So the polymer face shield can go right into your eyes when the rubber bullets hit it.
Oh,
jeez. There was an two instances in Austin. I don't remember the day, but it wasn't yesterday. So it was either Saturday. I think it was either Saturday or Sunday, where a person was hit in the face with a rubber bullet from a sniper.
There's a lot of people hitting like the face with beanbags with rubber bullets. It's really like all these people are out freaking out over police brutality, and then their response is to just get more brutal.
Stupid.
Yeah, exactly.
Like I've seen videos of like a teenage kid just kind of standing still, doing nothing. Not even like he almost doesn't even look like he's part of a protest, and they just boom right in the head from like maybe 20 feet away. He dropped. He looked like I mean, being from the internet age, I'm sure we've seen it. Like he looked like a guy got hit in the head like with a real bullet. Like he dropped.
Right.
He's got brain damage. He might even die. Like it's bizarre how these people are handling this shit.
Well,
so
it's
stupid.
I wouldn't call it bizarre. I would call it historically accurate. I mean,
okay,
seeing
not
all
bizarre.
These,
It's garbage how they're handling it.
It is garbage, and and seeing those reports, seeing all the images and the videos, what it reminded me of was seeing photos of footage of the protests in Northern Ireland. People holding up signs. Is it British rubber bullets kill Irish children, things like that. That's what it reminded me of. And obviously that wasn't, an episode that I think the world needs to repeat.
For sure. No, that makes a lot of sense. Like I got the comparison exactly. Damn.
And I know the federal government doesn't have central control over like police forces like you would in China or out there, but after all this shit about China doing this to the protesters and everything, like for us to just pull this kind of crap out, like don't get me wrong, I don't want to be like, oh, China was hands off. Like, no, they hired undercover thugs and shit to beat up people. Like they were still bad, but
they were all white
at the same time, the way we were posturing and everything, we were acting like, oh, we would never hurt peaceful protesters. Like I said, a lot of the videos I'm talking about that I saw were just people like literally like standing there, like and the city was shut down. It's not like oh, we need to get the traffic moving again, so we're clearing you out. Like, it was just wanton violence.
Yeah. So how do we... I know everybody's been, like, paying super close attention to the news and everything with this sort of stuff. Do we have any indication of what led the protest into riots, or do you think it was a natural outgrowth? Do we think there was any people outside, quote unquote, outside agitators?
Well, a cop murdered a guy.
Well,
it's not hard to riot to that. I mean, don't get me wrong. There's a huge mix. There's agitators. It's happened naturally.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of like accelerationists, people who are like they think violence will lead to their desired outcome somehow. So they're going to take any advantage of this situation as possible. But at the same time, I think like the cop killing that guy, especially the way he did it, is more than enough to make someone, hurl a brick.
Yeah. I think trying to pin down blame for who's starting the riots or who's doing what, I think that misses the point.
Yeah. There's no saying where it first happened. It's just...
it's, we can, it's not really, on some level, it just doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter. Like if, and it's not just about, obviously it's not just about one guy dying in Minneapolis. It's a long-term social ill that is boiling over again now, and probably because this is not the only killing in the last, a couple of weeks. So that's what we should be focusing on, not trying to pinpoint like, oh, okay, there's white nationalist groups, starting shit here and doing this. Well, of course, it's all pretty much inevitable when this kind of thing happens. It's part of the package. You don't get to separate one from the other, basically, not right now.
I mean, I think we could walk and chew bubblegum, because it's also, I think what should be a little important too is keeping an eye on like any kind of like, we talked about it in 2016 a lot, like any kind of Russian active measures, because this is what they live for. This is when their job is easiest, is when tensions are this high and everything. And I think it was wasn't it like the biggest BLM group was a Russian like operation. So like
There was a no, it wasn't the biggest BLM group. So there was a group on
a big
Facebook.
One?
No, it wasn't. It was a fake group. That's the point. Like it was.
Yeah, it was the point. It was the Russian active measure.
Right, but it wasn't. I wouldn't even say it was one of the biggest ones. It was just a one that had a lot of followers. It had like 100,000 followers or something like that.
I mean, that like some might say that's big.
The main activist ones had like a couple million or something like that, and most of the stuff that happens with BLM happens on Twitter. So the Facebook group is
okay.
Like,
well,
I get what you're saying.
Point is,
a big one. Right.
Yeah, it was big.
There's not a ton of I mean, let's be serious. There's a reason why they're going here, and
of course.
I think we should be able to talk about that too. Like we shouldn't just be like, oh, let's push all this to the side, because there's some stuff here that should be highlighted, like nefarious outsiders trying to make things worse. Like they're not protesting. These Russian people aren't protesting. They want worse things to happen. They want to twist the knife that's already in.
For sure.
So just being, putting it out there, I think is a good idea to, I mean, I'm not saying just trust BLM. I'm just saying, kind of keep an eye out for even the most craziest of stories, like something that really captures your heart, like pulls your heartstrings. Think twice about it, because it might be used just to fucking rile you up, because it's easy to get riled up now too. I mean,
it doesn't help that we've all been locked down for 2.5 months.
That's true too.
So I think there's a lot of kind of latent energy that was just looking for some kind of expression. And there's just been a weird kind of a cultural dynamic going on for a while, just a lot of tension. And it was looking for some kind of release. So especially, kind of on the heels of COVID, where just at that point, I mean, I know it seems like 1,000 years ago, but, just like a couple days ago, we were even debating if we should open up like nail salons. And now suddenly it's just like everything is busted wide open. So there's a huge amount of tension that was already kind of just existing in the atmosphere that was able to be released by this. So that probably contributed to the overall, just effect of it.
No, that's fair. I think, I do think we should kind of talk about all this stuff, just because we don't want to take focus off of George Floyd's murder and the other people that had been killed. I am very bad with names, but there was a woman that was that there was a no-knock raid on her house. On her home. They raided her house and she was killed in her sleep. That happened, I want to say, 2 days or so before Floyd's death. And so we don't want to take...
Breonna Taylor.
Yes. Yeah, Breonna Taylor. It was a few months ago, actually, I think.
And we also had the Ahmaud Arbery thing that just happened recently. Like, this is a lot of things.
Well, we were talking earlier about like the kind of the George Floyd thing being so obvious that you don't get the usual suspects who are kind of pushing back. Like the Ahmaud Arbery was I suppose was controversial in that some people really took one side or the other as far as, well, this should have happened, this shouldn't have happened. And, it was murkier just due to the fact that people seemed to be really kind of on either side about it. Whereas with the Floyd or George Floyd thing, it was really, really lopsided. I mean, you have a handful of people who are like, maybe he had fentanyl in his system. Maybe he died of a heart attack. and like there's like a sliver of them, but it's very, very low density. Like most people look at it, they're like, whoa, like that is not right.
Right.
Yeah, there's just no denying this was totally horrible. Like this is
only like the fringe are trying to spin it. Like nobody else wants to touch it.
Yeah, only the out and out racist, pretty much.
Well, yeah, sure. I mean, there's that. And then there's the group of people who never mentioned anything about George Floyd, never mentioned anything about any of the killings happening, in the last month or so, except maybe they would, kind of be wishy-washy about them. But then their real focus, though, is on the riots, where they don't really care about George Floyd, what's happening there. It's more about condemning the people that they want to condemn.
And as soon as the riots started happening, even some of the people that were kind of like, yeah, George Floyd was murdered, kind of just switched gears and just focused on the protest.
It's an afterthought. It's like it's a prefix that they use to make themselves sound reasonable, is what it is.
Who would you say that did that? Like one of the bigger personalities, maybe? Anybody else?
Bigger person. I don't pay attention to big personalities. I pay attention to social media people, what everyone's saying.
Okay, that's
as Trump would say, everyone's saying it.
Yeah, of course.
I mean, I think we all condemn the riots. It's not hard.
I don't think we all condemn the riots.
We all condemn the riots.
I don't.
No,
I mean, no, I wouldn't say I condemn the riots. I mean, sure. I mean, there are definitely elements in which. I mean, there are definitely. No, if I'm going to finish this because I can't stop talking there. That'd be a bad place to stop talking. No, so yeah, I mean, we can definitely condemn like parts of the riots that are not productive. But if you're talking about whether riots can be justified, let's say from a philosophical standpoint, can riots ever be justified? Of course, riots can be justified. Just whether or not riots are the best means to accomplish the change that you want to accomplish, and whether that change is worth it. And in this particular case, there's, like I said, it's not just about one guy being murdered. It's over 1,000 people killed by police every single year, right? And this is one person. This is just one person. And so are the peaceful means of trying to enact that change, have they been exhausted? Not exactly, but pretty damn close, honestly. And
okay, so we agree that the unproductive parts of the riots, which I feel like is kind of redundant to say, are the parts that we disapprove of. Yes,
the unproductive parts, but I wouldn't say that every part of it is unproductive. In order to get change, legal change, in order to pass bills, which is what people are kind of looking for, and the other part is social change. But in order to pass bills, you need one, allies in positions of power, and two, you need pressure. Riots are pressure. That's what they are.
Just to put on my Saul Alinsky hat.
Yeah.
It's all about the ends justifying the means. And people, I don't know if you've ever read Rules for Radicals, but he's got a great opening. One of his chapters is specifically to that. And basically, that whole concept is, do you agree with this cause or not? If you agree with the cause, then the ends will justify the means. And if you don't, then no ends would justify the means.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sorry. So go ahead and finish. You're right. Saul Alinsky was right that's how it can be thought. That concept that will freak people out, right? You say as soon as you mention the phrase "ends justify the means," people think, people go crazy. But really, everyone follows that concept, right? You've seen plenty of comparisons to the Boston Tea Party, right? Or something that people believed in, right? That they thought that violent revolution was a worthwhile means to pursue that. And to say that it's not worthwhile in this case is to say that the cause, that police violence against Black people, and that, it's to say that Black lives don't matter is essentially what it's to say.
And the Boston Tea Party,
of course, there are different degrees. It's not as absolute as that, but it's that's the general concept that I'm getting at.
Yeah, I don't think the Boston Tea Party was entirely productive. I think that's just something we constantly pat ourselves on the back for because, I don't know.
For sure.
We think we were clever for it or something. We dressed up like Native Americans.
Well, yeah, but okay, so Boston Tea Party, but also the other, 100 violent riots that happened in the late 18th century in the U.S.
Were those necessary? Was like revolution
Just
impossible without rioting?
It's hard. I mean, it's hard to
It's
know,
hard to
and that's
say.
kind of the thing.
It's hard to say. It's also a matter of this is going to sound weird, but it's also a matter of efficiency, right? It may have been possible, but if it took long enough, and I'm not saying this is the case, but if it took long enough and cost too many lives to do it slower, then why would you want to do it slower?
I mean, I just think France's hatred for Britain had a lot more to do with our rioting, with how things turned out.
I agree. Like as a student of history, I think that's definitely a big part. But getting back to the matter at hand, which is the issue, which is police violence against Black people, right? The slower we deal with this, the more innocent people die, and that's just a fact. And that's something that needs to be considered when you're talking about what actions are currently justified.
And rioting necessarily means innocent people will die. It's really hard to have a riot without innocent people being maimed or killed. So,
that's true.
It's
it's
kind of a weird justification for rioting.
Well, you can say that about any violence, right? Any violence that you would use to pursue a cause, right? Including U.S. revolution. Like I said, that's why I used that example, is because it was specifically violent and used.
Well, I wouldn't justify
and innocent Americans
killing innocent people because, like, I just wouldn't justify that with we don't do that. Usually, the violence we justify. Usually, the violence in the abstract that we justify has to do with non-innocent people. Like when I'm saying I would shoot a guy for some reason, I'm not like some rando on the street. Like there's an implied evil about him. Like, and for lack of a better word, I say evil. It's obviously evil is a dumb concept.
Yeah, and most people believe that. So, here's the question: is, I wouldn't justify like just going out and intentionally shooting someone who's completely innocent, has nothing to do with it, right? But would you instigate a situation in which some innocent people may die? Like how many people have died in the riots the last week? Probably a dozen, maybe more, right? If it enacts change that will save other lives, is that worth it? And that's not an easy question to answer. It's
because we'll never know if it does. That's why, don't opt for it if you're not going to know the answer.
Right? It's hard to measure
it a non-option.
I wouldn't consider it a non-option. It's hard to measure hypotheticals. You have to, because you're dealing with expectations. You're dealing with expectations across an entire country, across long term, and it's not, like I said, not easy to measure, but it's something that needs to be considered. You just can't, because choosing it as immediately marking it as a non-option is making a choice. That's making a decision.
I have a question real quick. Like if the police end up becoming more militarized and having more options to really go after us and hurt us in ways that we don't want, would we consider maybe it's a bad option? Because
if that's a consequence,
it's pretty easy to tie. Like if that happens, it's pretty easy to tie that to the riots. It's not like they just randomly would have, bumped up their arsenal again.
Yeah, I mean, if that's a consequence of the riots, then that's something that needs to be considered. That is part of the cost.
I would say it's a net negative.
You could lose any
cost
more that you start.
Yeah, I mean, it's not. I mean, if that's the only change that's affected, then obviously that would be a lose. Like there's no win there. But
isn't that a likely outcome though? Is it more likely than people like just saying, "Hey, all these people got killed. I say it's time to like." Sorry, what?
I mean, that's one.
Go ahead, Dylan. Sorry.
That's one likely outcome. One likely outcome. There are other things that would happen though. Like that's not the only thing that would happen, right? Where there's a bill that's just been introduced to end qualified immunity. That's another effect of these riots. That wouldn't have happened if there weren't riots. I guarantee you that.
Qualified immunity is kind of weird because it doesn't cover violations of rights. So, I mean, Amash is talking about violations of rights. I think this is more just Amash being public about something. Like, don't get me wrong, it's probably a good place to look, but the whole qualified immunity thing, I think it's more of an attention grabber than it really is anything that's like it's not a policy that you can just wish away. It's otherwise.
I mean, it's one that we can legislate away. This won't be wish.
Yeah.
Well, how do you legislate away? They're already not allowed to violate rights. It doesn't cover those things. Like what does it actually
What do you mean?
protect?
It protects them
go
against
ahead.
civil suits.
Yeah, civil suits. Like if I were to handcuff you and throw you in a car from like being charged with something like kidnapping, right? Doesn't it say, because in that line of work I have certain authorizations. It's not protecting me if I, start punching you in the face. That's not what qualified immunity covers.
Yeah,
like
that's
all
the
the violence and
qualified
thing that
part.
we're against. It's the what?
I said that's the qualified part of the qualified immunity, is that there are qualifications. It's not absolute immunity.
Yeah, well, the qualification is that they're a cop. Like certain things a cop should be authorized to do, like shooting in the street is something that we're going to authorize them to do. Using force on a person is something that they're going to be authorized to do. Any violations of rights, qualified immunity doesn't protect. And if it does, that's
So
the problem with a judge more than it is qualified immunity.
So-
Don't get me wrong. I mean, if we could do something, whatever Justin Marsh is trying to do, let's say it somehow does lead to less police abuse, huzzah, cool. It's just, I think it's more of a, ooh, look at that. And Amash is like, oh, look at me. I'm so not regular Republican.
Okay. Yep. Qualified immunity, it's a relatively small thing because the immunity that we think cops have is mostly implied. It's not a legally explicit immunity. I think the statistics are something like 1 in every 150 killings, or for every 1 in 150 people killed by police officers in a year, or in general, there are charges filed, something like that. It's a stupid low number, and it's cops have virtual immunity for any illicit actions that they conduct in the course of their job, right? So qualified immunity is a very small part of that. What it does is it increases the cost, the actual financial cost, because you're talking about civil suits. It increases the actual financial cost of cops who are held liable for their actions, but that's still a pretty small number. So I agree. I think you're right that that's not major change, but it is something, and that's just one. I mean, that's really one tiny aspect of something that we should be pursuing from a larger, from many more fronts than just that.
Well, that's
I hope
exactly
it's something, because if it does, Pat. Sorry.
Mateo, go ahead and finish your point, and then Art jumps in.
What did you finish off with again, Dylan? I kind of forgot where I was going. I lost my train of thought.
I said that qualified immunity is one front of a war that we should be fighting on many fronts.
I can't remember what my point was. I think
you hope if it does pass.
I hope if it does pass, it does create some sort of change. I just have a feeling it's one of these things. Oh, there we go. I remember now. It's like, I'm just afraid if it does pass and it doesn't actually really change much at all, it's going to be one of those things that people just, they're not obviously going to let off the gas entirely, but they're going to look at this like we did something. And I think it's largely just a very popular misconception about what qualified immunity does, because it doesn't protect them when they violate a person's rights. It protects them like if I tackle you while chasing you in the street, and you break your leg, meanwhile you were like robbing a store. It's like, I'm a cop. That's part of the job. I'm not in trouble for that. But if I start pounding you in the face, while you're like restrained, qualified immunity doesn't cover that, because that's not part of the legal duties of a police officer.
It doesn't, but it has that effect on the jury where they'll be like, well, he was resisting arrest. The cops know what's best to stop resisting arrest. So it kind of plays into that a little bit. But Art, you had a point that you wanted to make. Please go ahead.
Well, two, and one is that what Dylan was just saying is that, it's a multi-front kind of a concept here. There isn't any one thing where you're like, if we just do that, there would be no police brutality. It's an entire structure that has a lot of different components to it. So qualified immunity is just one, that anything you do that raises people's threshold as far as, man, if I do that, I could get in trouble. It doesn't matter what it is. You have a certain threshold where you're like, I'm good. Like anything I do in this job, I'm fine. That's a baseline. And, honestly, and, we look for cops who, quite frankly, aren't that smart. Like, you're not looking for the sharpest.
Yeah, that's a problem.
I mean, we're weeding for, people who are operating at a certain level, and they're going to operate off of that basically training level of, hey, don't do that shit. You won't get away with it, or you're fine. like as long as we can change that dynamic a bit, it's going to have effects on the margins that are going to tilt the numbers. So
I would love to change that too.
Yeah,
I'm just saying. Sorry, I keep interrupting.
No, go ahead.
It's just like I'm just afraid that it's like it's definitely one part of a whole bunch of things we have in mind for fixing it, but it's one of the bigger ones. It's one of the ones I've heard a lot recently, and I think it just distracts us from the important part is cops violating rights. Because I mean, I don't think I'm going to be able to explain it well because I'm not prepared to really explain it. Plus, it's a very controversial topic, but at the same time, there are certain behaviors, there are certain things that come in the line of duty for a cop that are just going to be things that you and I are not allowed to do. And that's what qualified immunity covers, because they should be allowed to do certain things. Like I'm not allowed to tase someone in New York, but a cop, I'm kind of repeating myself. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah. So if I can add to this,
could you let Art go ahead and finish his point, and then you can go?
Yeah, go ahead, Art. Sorry. Oh, I like those shifty eyes.
Wait, where was I going with that? God damn it. Okay, so I'm just going to skip to my next point because I absolutely forgot where I was going with that. The issue of police killing. Oh, we're talking about kind of the margins as far as like what effects we're trying to create. If you think of it as like this kind of fan wheel down here, as far as like, the spectrum, we have 1,000 killings a year in the U.S. The police, killing just anybody. And we're not really great at these stats either. In France, there's 26 from 2019. We had about 1,000. So, and France has like a population about the fifth of ours. So, even still, that's like a 2.5% rate from another advanced nation like ours. So, regardless of kind of how you want to look at it, we have this incredibly aggressive, militarized system that not just we're talking about killings, but then think of how that spectrum expands into woundings or harassment. Like imagine if, George Floyd merely had the boot on his neck for 8 seconds and they let him up and he lived, and kind of, you still go about your life, but you have this whole community that generally survives these instances, but you're constantly reminded that you're practically living in this weird like fishbowl police state where you're under observation, where you can be harassed, where you can be messed with, nearly killed. I mean, obviously being killed is terrible, but how often is it just nearly killed, where you're just fucked with, and that these cops are never going to face justice? You live in this system where you really have no way to get any kind of control over how you're policed. And that is kind of what's diabolically fucked up about our entire system, is that you generally survive it. It's tragic. I mean, we look at these extreme cases where people die and we're like, that's messed up. But we can't even wrap our heads around the fact that like in the United States, our prison population is about 2.2 million. In like Australia, which again, smaller population, they have 42,000 people in prison. And there's a prison colony. Like our system is so incredibly aggressive and messed up, and we just kind of accept it as normal, but it creates these horrible outcomes that people are really unhappy with. And it's like just getting people's attention. They're like, oh, well, it's the black people, they kill so many, the black on the black crime. And it's like you can't even have a reasonable conversation with people because they just look at these like FBI crime stats, and then there we go. And you try and show them, hey, other countries do this stuff. Freaking communist China has a smaller prison population than we do. And that we know about. Well, I mean, true that we know about, but like, or the Russians or other people who, we have a vaguely good idea. And it's insane that we can't just snap ourselves out of this law and order like obsession we have, that we have to be super aggressive and militarized and just jack people up and live in this structure that we're very unhappy with. And you try to change it, and suddenly there's all these reasons why we can't. We're like, I mean, Japan doesn't do this, Germany doesn't do this, like nobody does this. So
yeah,
like,
even
when
why are? Sorry, go ahead. Finish. No,
I was just going to finish, but I was just say, I mean, yes, we do have guns in this country. That is somewhat of a different factor, but that doesn't explain, for instance, why you have like drug use in America, where like blacks and whites use drugs at about the same rate. Yet, if you're black, you're 3 times more likely to be charged and it's like 5 times more likely to get like a far more severe sentence. Like it is crazy, like how broken our system is, and you can't even talk to people about it because they're just like, well, they shouldn't do crime. Like it's just nuts. So that's why we're at where we're at now. Is that nobody wants to have a rational discussion, so we just wind up with like these irrational, situations like riots where nobody wants to be with rioting, but we can't have a normal discussion because people are just too hardened and stupid.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yes, everything you just said, Art. And we did this during our technical issues, but we're 5 white guys talking about racial issues, and that's we have to do this little pageantry, right? When we talk about all this, we have to like acknowledge, right? Blah blah blah, and I mean that's purely for other white people. It's a signaling thing. And that kind of thing. It turns people off from these conversations. So I'm glad we didn't do that after before starting this whole conversation for the second time. But here's the real ray of sunshine: is that everything Art talked about, we're not going to solve. I mean, we're not going to solve it. It's not going to be solved right now. No matter what we do, it's not going to be fixed in probably in our lifetimes. But the actions that we take now. We're not talking about fixing the issue. We're not talking about making it all right, because the kind of change that would be required, economic, social, is just it's not realistic that we are going to be willing to go along with that. We just Americans will not do it. But we're talking the margins again, right? Our actions are the marginal costs worth the marginal benefits? And that's the question we should be asking right now.
You quanted that down to the dumps, especially you guys who are like young. Like I might not live to see it, but
50 years maybe. I don't know.
You've got another good 10 years in you, Art.
Hey, can you
go ahead, Mateo, and then Art, just since you're asking a question.
Is there like a hierarchy for which race has more right to talk about a certain issue, or not more right, but gets less made fun of for talking about an issue? Is there a hierarchy there, or is it just like white and everything else?
So I know you're being facetious here, like you're making a joke.
No, I'm dead ass serious because the way you're talking.
Okay, yeah. So like some people believe that clearly, but again, we're more. This is a political podcast. We talk about politics, and we're not going to fucking ignore this, right? Like how stupid would that be? And we're going to hold this. We're holding this because it's not above empirical standards. It's not above the standards of proper, sharing of information. It's not above the standards of debate. Nothing is. That's the point of it, right? So we're going to talk about it no matter what, and no matter who we are. It's not about who we are. It's about the points that we're making.
Yeah, I think
I just thought there was a reason why the whole skin color thing was brought up. So
the reason why is what Dylan said. It's mainly for other white people's benefits, because honestly, in my experience, it's mainly for other white people's benefits. We'll just say it that way. And it's one of those things where it's like, oh yeah, we don't really want to hear some people, leftists on not the super far left, but leftists, don't want to hear the opinions of 5 white dudes talk about this issue, because in their minds, generally speaking, it would be problematic.
But they should, because unfortunately, it's white people who are, kind of the stumbling block here. So the opinion of like 5 random white guys is unfortunately way more relevant to the, conversation than, anybody else, which is tragic, but it's sad.
White people also make up the majority of the country still, so
no, that's what I mean. Obviously it's not that like I'm like, making the big brain argument that like, oh well, we think it's more important. What I mean is we're the majority. So like, unfortunately, the tipping point of change is rooted in what you can get past a white guy.
Yeah. Earlier I said you need allies and pressure. You can't ignore the first part. You need allies in positions of power. And, kind of by definition, the people in positions of power are not going to be the minorities. Political minorities when I say
Political,
that.
yeah. Art, you had a point you were going to make before I let Mateo ask his question. Or Mateo, did that answer your question satisfactory? To your satisfactory? For now, anyways.
I mean, I'll just leave it alone because it's.
Okay. Art, you said you wanted to say something. Do you remember?
I think we already.
Oh, okay.
I think we caught the crossfire there.
What's up? Crossfire?
I think it was covered in the crossfire. Somewhere.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Okay. So
hold on.
Go ahead.
You're letting Sean skate, and I don't know that I approve.
Oh, yeah. Sean has
Sean's
so
skating?
much.
sitting there just like taking it all in, but he's
he
charging up he's hiding his power level on us.
I'm watching some live feed of the Atlanta. There's so much military out there.
What's going down? Tell us.
I mean, right now it's quiet, but there's so many people. There's
You can
literally. I'm looking right now. There's like 5 Humvees, like 4 or 5 APCs. Literally, at least 200, 300 guys with riot shields and full military trap. All the yeah.
Pick me up an NRAP.
If you want, I can stream this live feed into another little box.
They don't even need keys.
You
you just turn the knob and you're good to go.
Right.
You could. I don't know if it would capture the audio. I don't know. Is the audio important though?
The audio. I don't even know if it has. I'm sure it does.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead and throw it up in the stream. I'll make it a.
Yeah, this is actually this. I believe this guy's representing the ACLU. Am I saying that abbreviation right?
Yeah. If it's the American Civil Liberties Union, yeah.
Yes. So he's supposedly there as an observer for that specifically. He's got a vest for it. And all.
Can people on the stream see this? Okay, it's a vertical video, so it's not going to be terribly big.
Yeah.
Are we going to get kicked off of Twitch for this?
No. Twitch's affiliate status thing is more like you can't use.
This is some random guy on
non-open-source
Facebook,
news.
so
yeah,
it's not
this is
like.
fine.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just wanted to jump in with this while you're setting that up. Let me just lay this on you because Trump just tweeted about Mattis, and you'll like it because this is poetry. Here is the words of our leader Donald J. Trump. Probably the only thing Brock and I have in common is that we both had the honor of firing Jim Mattis, the world's most overrated general. I asked for his letter of resignation and felt great about it. His nickname was Chaos, which I didn't like, and changed to Mad Dog. His primary strength was not military, but rather personal public relations. I gave him a new life, things to do, and battles to win, but he seldom brought home the bacon. I didn't like his leadership style or much else about him, and many others agree. Glad he's gone.
Holy
the best part about
fuck.
This is the president of the United States. Like, imagine having such a child lead your country.
We don't have to imagine. We don't have to imagine.
Yeah.
We're coming up on 4 years of this.
But I mean, I'll defend the guy when I think he deserves to be defended. But Jesus Christ, man, there's so many instances where it's just stupid shit like that. Forget the fact that he's just blowing shit out of his ass to talk shit. If he gave one shit about re-election, he wouldn't be going after such a beloved military figure. Yeah, this guy's a child.
Not just beloved by civilians that know some of the stuff that he did, but military people. He still has pull in the military.
He's a very popular
Trump thinks
guy.
Trump thinks he's got bad dudes backing him, attacking Mattis, man's taking at least 25% of those guys away, dude.
It's wild. You really couldn't even script this. You couldn't write this for Hollywood. Imagine 5 years ago, trying to sell this in Hollywood.
Shit on the Daily Show that came to life.
Oh, Jesus Christ!
So it's not that he's doing this because he isn't thinking about re-election. He's doing this. I mean, he's part of this is he thinks that this is him being a tough guy, and that's going to help him in re-election. That's how. Yeah. That's really he's just that dumb. He kind of. I mean, he's one. Stupid people. They will justify doing whatever they want to do. With by any means necessary, and that's Jesus Christ, Anthony.
Wow. Can you zoom in a little more? That wasn't quite enough.
Sorry, I didn't mean to distract you, but yeah. So for people that aren't aware that might be tuning in, Jim Mattis published a op-ed within the Atlantic today. It was about an hour or so before we went live, just ripping Trump a new one for misuse of military force against peaceful protesters when I think was it yesterday, or no, it was Monday, when he strolled out to the White House lawn in order to give a press conference about we will reestablish law and order and I am your law and order president. When I don't know how many people were tuned into the live broadcast of it at the time, but the president the live broadcast started way before he walked out there, because everybody knows that Trump's usually late to these things. But announced on the live speaker was the 2-minute warning of him being about to speak, and it wasn't just like a little press thing where like, hey, 2 minutes he'll be out. It was 2 minutes. The president will be speaking. 2-minute warning, and it was just like as soon as that happened. Like 30 seconds later, the sounds of smoke canisters and flashbangs just stopped, and so it was, to me, that was just fucking political theater designed to be like, I'm a tough man, I'm super tough. Art, please go ahead.
Just really quick, I really love this thing that they're going on about right now about initially when the crowds were cleared for the kind of photo op. The reporting was that there was pepper spray, tear gas that was used to clear the crowds. There was reporters on the scene. There was like crowds, people were reporting it live. So they scattered, and then everybody walked across, and they did their thing, and then they left. So later on, I guess the Parks Police or the DC Police, somebody was like, "Oh, no tear gas was used. We didn't use tear gas. No tear gas." Mm-hmm. And then they're like. And then, of course, like right-wing media blew up. Oh, there's no tear gas. It was fake news. And then they're like, yeah, it was like pepper spray or something. And so now we're in this idiot argument over like what agent it was. Like was it CS gas? Jesus. Or was it CN gas? Or was it like CO or spray? Or like what? Like
was
the
it
fact
nerve gas?
That, like,
I think we're starting that rumor. It was nerve gas.
But the fact that like you couldn't like by the whiff like identify it means that like you're conspiring to create fake news, like while you're choking and like like oh you couldn't tell what that was, fake news.
It was so stupid. Like NPR was live on the ground at the White House, and they're like, you can hear the explosions in the background. I'm sitting there like, yep, those are explosions in the background. Something's happening, and like to like go on about this is just so stupid.
I don't know if you saw, but Chris Lizza and what's his name, Grinnell, got into like this argument on Twitter. And, Grinnell's like, yeah, like, I live across the street. That didn't happen. And Chris is like, no, it did happen. Like, it absolutely happened. And he's like, well, you just saw that on TV. You don't know. And Chris is like, I was standing there in the park when it happened. Like, it literally happened. And Grinnell's like, no, it didn't. And it's like, it's maddening. It's like this ridiculous, like nonsense. And there's literally video of like the smoke or whatever agent it was. Like the thing is, it doesn't matter. Like even if it was just smoke, guess what? Smoke, you don't want to breathe it. Like if they're throwing smoke grenades at you, you need to clear out. Like nobody's going to stand there and like try and inhale smoke. I don't know if you've ever played with a smoke grenade, but you can't breathe through that shit. Like it is actually really, really uncomfortable, and it's not good for you. So it's naturally going to disperse you, whether or not there's like an irritant agent or not. So it's just so funny though that like that's where the discourse is at now, where like they're so eager to say that the news is lying that they will find some crazy technicality of, oh well, it wasn't really that, was it fake news? And then we get stuck for days arguing over like this idiotic trivia.
I can't stand it, man. The amount of just sycophancy, or I don't know, that's not how you pronounce it, but you know what I'm getting at. Like the amount of just going on with all these Republicans and Trumpians and whatever the fuck you want to call them. Like it is just, it's over 9,000. Like that's how, like it breaks the fucking meter of how much this is, how beyond the pale this is. And George we're getting a little bit off topic here, but George Will did a scathing article and said that not only must Trump not win an election, but none of the Republicans that are defending him win election. And then what is it? Orrin Hatch comes out and tells George Will to basically go fuck himself. Like, are you serious? George Will, like the conservative icon of like a fucking generation. You're gonna go tell him to go fuck himself? Really? Come on, man.
I mean, I wouldn't call him a conservative icon, but he's a conservative. That's well known.
Well, at least a thought leader, like at one point. So, but go ahead, Art. Sorry.
It's interesting. I mean, like, what is even a conservative these days? Like, there was a time where George Will was unquestionably a conservative thought leader. He's easily top 5 in any list you want to make. These days, like, I mean, it's questionable if he's even a Republican or Democrat, much less like a thought leader. Like, it's so funny how far everything has shifted, and it's hard to even say where. But people like George Will are just like they're just dinosaurs. Like I don't even know how they fit into the current structure anymore.
That's because people like George Will, they had philosophies that they believed in. You can agree or disagree with George Will. He's not a stupid person. Most people do not have that. Most people are malleable. They are more liquid than that. And that's not to say people are idiots. That's not what I'm saying at all. It's that I think every one of us here can pretty much describe ourselves, what our political philosophy is. Yeah, what's up, Mateo? But others are more reactionary on that front, and they pay attention to other things. People have lives that don't revolve around politics, as hard as it is for us to imagine that.
Wait, there's other stuff? Oh my God. But I think we should kind of talk about we talked about the protests a little bit and kind of the touched upon the riots. We probably should talk about the groups that are accelerating or trying to hijack these things or use them for their own benefit. What do we know about some of these groups from the media, maybe from personal experience of the kind of people that are out there specifically with the agenda to cause trouble in order to affect political change on the extreme ends of the spectrum? I
mean, immediately we think of like domestic actors, but there's probably like, there are spies and there are, terrorists who are inactive or, offline right now in America. This is probably a really good time for them to get whatever type of logistics things they need to get down. Like there's a big fog of war for them to operate under. So they're one of it. Like I know you kind of meant more domestic groups, but I think it's actually kind of important to point out that I'm pretty sure a lot of terrorist groups are having a lot easier time mobilizing these last few days.
Gotcha.
Not that I think there's like a major terrorist element in the country. Like I realize our audience is probably gonna be like, oh, what the hell are you talking about, man? More people die from blah 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 than 9/11. I'm just saying, there's criminal elements and they're not all domestic and they're going to move around.
Criminal elements, foreign intelligence,
for certain, for foreign intelligence, there's no reason to suspect. There's no reason to believe otherwise. To be completely honest, if people can believe that George Soros is pulling the strings behind everything, then there's no reason why. Okay, how is it cutting out?
It's like
right there.
It's like a 2 or 3 second cutout every when you speak.
Every like couple words seconds, or so.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me.
Are you using push to talk?
No. So let me go ahead and do this number. Hold on.
Hooray! Technical issues on live shows.
Yeah, I can probably use push to talk, but you know what? I'll just use push to talk. It's fine.
So just real quick, just to jump
Extended stay.
The vast majority of what we're going to see are going to be essentially like chaos tourists. You're going to have people who just see stuff going down, and they're going to jump in and get involved because they're like borderline like criminal anyway, and they don't have anything going on, and they live for stuff like this. Like there's attention, there's focus. It's going to suck them in from different states, and they're just going to show up and just cause havoc. and there's not going to be any kind of organized or ideological or anything to it. You just have a nation of 333 million people. Out of that, you're always going to have several thousand within a radius of driving distance who can show up and just do stupid stuff. Like, unfortunately, we're just that big of a country that the fringe, the crazy fringe, is large enough to get noticed and go out and smash windows. They can get away with it.
So
you're still
fun side story. So every year in the Northwest, there's the May Day riots, right? The May Day protests, they call it,
right,
which are less actual protests than they are kind of a national holiday for anarchists in the Northwest.
Mm-hmm.
So every year, when I lived in Seattle, saw this firsthand. There are people who march downtown and then eventually start defacing property and throwing bricks through windows and stuff like that. Police chase them down. It's a kind of theater that happens every year, so an acquaintance of mine was photographed throwing a brick through the Nike store window while wearing black Nikes with the big white swoosh on them. And for the most part, like, those people are, they're some libertarian nut jobs. A lot of them are like also kind of wealthy kids who have never been employed and who, believe themselves to be anarchists, right? And they travel around as they please, and they do kind of what they please on that in that weird, I don't know, self-righteous vein. But it's not like those people are meshing with what I would call legitimate protests, and that's part of what's happening here today.
Most of anyone riding
quick
are
thanks,
kids.
Mick Beasley, for the follow. Appreciate it, man. Go ahead, Mateo.
Most of anyone riding, they are kids. Like, a lot of people try to like tie them maybe to the protest or something, but a lot of it's just apolitical kids. Like, I mean, I was a pretty bad kid growing up. If there actually was the big brownout and we just ran amok, like, there are people out there that they just want to fuck with shit. Like, they're just looking for adrenaline or something. So,
especially if you're young, I mean, people forget what it's like to be like a 20-year-old dude who you just like, go down.
Yeah. When I was,
maybe not 20
or whatever. I mean,
like 18. Like, when I was 18, I was
younger,
a
but yeah.
Like, I dropped out of college to become a professional wrestler.
you kids,
shit. Yeah.
You kids who are like 34, you're.
Yeah.
Like, I think I was talking to Anthony. I was like, the 16-year-old in me gets really jealous when I look at those kids running in like Saks Fifth Avenue and Barney's and Bloomingdale's, like,
right?
Because that's really what it's just kids. Like, it's not like people who have a political stake in this argument. I mean, sure, there's going to be some of that, of course, but it's mostly apolitical kids who just don't give a fuck.
Now, that said, but those kids were sent by George Soros.
Yes.
So we should just
he pays well. He pays
right.
well.
To jump on that one, though, like, there was an online conspiracy theorist that gets followed by some of the more nefarious crowd, and their proof that it was Soros was that Antifa was being paid by Soros was the fact that a person in the crowd had one of those like old style earpieces that you would see in the Secret Service, but in movies, where he's like, yeah, like that, and I'm just like, all right,
with the curly cord.
Yeah, and it was the thing, and I'm like, and so I responded to him on our Twitter account, and I'm like, dude, like, that's some Secret Service shit. At least get your conspiracy theories right. Like, it's just fucking nuts, man.
Soros and the Secret Service are like this, and
they're like tight.
Like,
yeah.
So yeah, we've kind of been joking around a little bit here for the last couple of minutes, but we're talking about kids doing a lot of, like, stupid kids doing stupid kid stuff are doing a lot of the rioting. A lot of them are getting killed, right? To bring us back down to earth. And how many, like, I'm from rural Iowa. A lot of my acquaintances on social media are from rural Iowa, and they have kind of this Clint Eastwood mentality. I can't tell you how many people I've seen share things like, "Oh, shoot looters," right? Shoot looters, and that's their idea is, I'm protecting my own, but really, I mean, in reality, what you're promoting is, hey, these, like, if you think someone deserves to die for property crime or for bursting into your home because, A, they probably don't realize you're there, or B, they're just fucking stupid. Like, if you think a kid deserves to die for that, like, what are you, how is this, do you think you're a badass for that? Like, this,
like,
it's
why
confusing to
shoot
me, and
a looter?
it's genuinely upsetting to me. Like I don't, I mean, we talk about a lot of political, topics, but that's something that's genuinely upsetting to me, because if people deserve to die for that, most of the people who say those things would have been killed when they were kids because they did stupid shit. And it's frightening.
It's people who don't have a fully developed frontal lobe. Like, they honestly think like, oh, there's a guy stealing
he's
some.
totally serious.
I know.
Yeah, no. It's
That's
like
why I'm
literally
laughing.
this type of decision making comes down to the frontal lobe. These people, they see someone taking clothes or something, and they're like, oh, kill him, man, or shoot him. They may not want him to die, but they want you to shoot him or something. They might try to get out of it. But that's ridiculous. Like, if you really cared about stopping looting, why not say arrest the looters? Like, that's the reasonable thing to do. Instead, you're like, shoot them. Yeah, let's apply lethal force to some dude stealing shit. Like, that's like, it's just amazing. It comes down to frontal lobe shit. Like, these are the types of people who I don't want to say they make fun of reading, but at the same time, if you were to start talking about a bunch of books that you read, they'd be like, oh god, okay, like something like that. I don't know. I'm just trying to insult these people.
Anti-intellectualism is very much a vein within the American
like they think it has something to do with manhood or something. It's like, no, it's cool, man. I just don't care if they die for stealing. It's like,
it's like whatever.
Don't get me wrong, I don't want people to loot. I'm fine with them arresting looters. You don't have to shoot these fucking people. And if they get away, damn, I'm sorry, it's fucking insured. The fucking company insures their product.
Just let me break in real quick. Sean, could you go ahead and end your video? And Nikki, how are you doing? I know that you had a tornado warning and you just joined us recently. So are you okay?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, I have no idea how long I'm going to last because I have no electricity and I don't have any Wi-Fi. Is it a good time to talk about 5G and Bill Gates? I'm just kidding. So I'm probably going to pop in and out. Literally, I don't even know how I got here. So continue. I would just listen. And
no problem. Just making sure
you took
you're
a wrong
okay.
turn somewhere.
Just making sure you're okay.
Yeah.
For people that don't know, she's got severe weather happening in her area, tornado warning. So when she popped in, we just wanted to check in. Nikki is also one of our members. She's on the cast regularly. If this is your first time joining us, you'll see her around a lot. So we got a question actually from Mick Beasley, the person that followed us, if we saw the looting of the Nike outlet. I don't know if there was more than one, but I did see one. Was there a particular question with that? Very ironic, but he... Okay. He also says that I believe you have a right to defend your property no matter how old the looter is. I guess it just depends on the situation, though.
So I'm gonna
killing and defending property that's not the only way to defend your property. We're talking about shooting people with live rounds, not defending property.
Yeah.
We're all in favor of you defending your property. That doesn't mean go full throttle on deadly force.
Proportional response. Stealing a TV, like, even if they come into your home, if you do not think that they are a threat to you, if you have no reason to believe they are a threat to you, like, if they are, if they're visibly unarmed, you cannot just fucking shoot them. That is murder. That's fucking murder. And so we were talking about a case a little while ago, probably more than a year ago, actually. That's how my memory works. This guy, someone broke into this guy's home, was looting it, went upstairs. He had a knife on him, I think, and ran into the owner, the homeowner, and homeowner, got a knife wound, and then the intruder dropped the knife and ran away. And then the homeowner, I think, chased him down and then killed him.
I remember that.
Yeah. Do you guys remember that?
Yeah.
The threat was over. He was not in immediate danger. That is no longer self-defense. That is murder. If you chase someone down, even if they just committed a crime against you, that is not self-defense. That's murder.
Yep.
People don't realize. People don't realize that you have to actually be in danger. Your life has to be in danger for it to be self-defense. If a guy punched you and now he's running away, your life is not in danger. So all these there's
Unless
a class of people out there.
Stupid stand your ground laws that don't account for all that.
Still not allowed to do that with stand your ground.
Yeah, stand your ground does not defend
stand your
that.
ground.
Stand your
Yeah,
ground
yeah.
is about
There's a
Okay,
huge misconception
I'll
about what stand your ground is, but I forget where I was going now. Oh, basically, it's like I have a lot of gun rights friends. Obviously, if you guys know me, you know I'm huge on gun rights.
Yeah.
But there's a large group of people within that community who like they'll almost say like, "Oh man, I just want someone to break into my house." It's like you're talking about guns in the context of guns, and you want them to break in your house. Like you're just saying, like, what is so like why is so awesome to shoot someone? Like, don't get me wrong. If someone's attacking you, take care of business, fuck them up, and puff your chest out when you're done. It's cool. It's you defended your life. You're going to feel good about it. But at the same time, you're just like begging for it. It's like again, it comes down to the frontal lobe. Yeah, it's like a frontal lobe thing. It's like some of them just don't develop beyond like 16, because that's like something I'd probably say as a kid or something. Because I didn't develop like a sound theory of human rights.
I mean, you were a child, so
just basic right and wrong. But like I mentioned this earlier, most people just don't give a shit about that. Not in any real sense.
Yeah, they just like, nope, it's too late. It's time to shoot. It's like, no, that's not self-defense. Like, you're a fucking moron. Like, I'm sorry, I'm not you guys, and I'm talking about some faceless person. But it's like, Jesus Christ, it's like these are the people that make gun rights hard to come by or harder to defend, because you're going to be out there like, hey, I can't wait to kill some people. It's like, thanks, man. You're helping the cause.
Well, it's good gun owners, bad gun owners. Every bad gun owner thinks that they're a good gun owner.
Yep.
And that's who we're talking about.
Yeah, it's like they saw A Christmas Story, and every scenario they think about is when the kid's shooting the robbers, or I mean, back then it was probably Indians or something, or Native Americans.
Oh yeah.
That's how they imagine. It's like, oh
robbers.
yeah, they're all just getting the bad guys.
McBeasley chimed in that he agrees with us that he would have to be in immediate danger for him to pull the trigger on somebody. So good on you, man. Glad we're all on the same page.
Yeah. I think we all basically agree then.
So I want to kind of bring it back down to the protest. So we didn't really touch on it at all, so, other than some of the protests riots being jokingly being supported by George Soros. But we should talk about some of the more political groups on there. From my media reading, and people can correct me if they have different media reading, is that seems to be three kind of more extreme groups that seem to be wanting to exploit this. We have what everybody else likes to label as Antifa, but I will label as anarchist, because not every Antifa member is an anarchist, and not every Antifa member is going out dressed in black bloc. That's a narrative that I am going to stick to because it's true.
Yeah. A lot of people confuse Antifa and black bloc. A lot of people conflate. Sorry.
So Dylan, what was your ask?
No, I just asked what Antifa.
I'm sorry,
I literally cannot hear you.
Yeah, I said Antifa, so anti-fascist. A lot of people.
Okay, yeah, I get it. Okay, yeah. Sorry.
No problem. So a lot of people, like Mateo was going in on, a lot of people conflate the tactic of black bloc with Antifa in general. That's just a tactic that some of the people use in their direct action in order to kind of meld in and not be seen. And not every single Antifa member agrees with that version of direct action. So I'm going to call them anarchists that are maybe anarchists and tankies. A combination of those people that think, burn the system down, man. Fuck the system, like, completely, but actually actively engaged in trying to break the system. So that's one group. That's on the leftist kind of side. And then you have, media reports and new media, like people like us and Unicorn Riot. Love Unicorn Riot. If you guys don't know who Unicorn Riot is, go check them out, or check them out. They were a group of people that broke a lot of the white nationalist new groups. They infiltrated their Discord servers and other private messaging, and that was their direct action to stop fascism. So again, different methods to fight fascism. So that's one of those things.
Is that how Doja Cat got caught?
Is that how who?
Doja Cat?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know what you're referring to.
It's a stupid pop culture joke, yeah. she's like a rapper, singer, or something, and I think she's African American, which makes this a little more weird. She was caught in like a Zoom chat with. I mean, these days you don't know if they're just right wingers being called fascist or racist or something, but she said like the N-word. She just started blurting it out.
Okay.
And I mean, even if these people aren't like straight up like racist, they're probably close enough to where the association was just made at random. So she's in a lot of trouble for that these days. I mean, actually, it kind of got blown under the radar after the riots and the protests and everything. So either the timing could be the best for her or the worst for her.
No, that makes sense. Yeah, but I had.
But it was just a dumb joke. Yeah.
No, it's all good. Thank you for explaining the joke to a person that didn't get it. We got Crowdsourced Politics. Make sure everybody is.
Everybody knows jokes. Everybody knows jokes are funnier when you explain them.
Yes, this is true. But just to try to finish my point quickly. So we know that there's white. Oh, Art, what's up?
We just had an earthquake out here. Just FYI.
Oh shit! Are you okay?
Wait, like just now?
Was it? It was like 2 minutes ago. It was a 5.3 or something.
While you were on camera. Yeah, I'm from Iowa. I don't understand
California.
What an earthquake is. Yeah.
I mean, it was inland, so like they probably like it was falling off. Like for me, I was just like, oh, earthquake. They just rolled through. But, like it was like inland. It was the thing.
Gotcha.
It's more of like a light vibration out here, but Riverside's like an hour and a half that way. So apparently it was centered out there.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm
just
glad you're okay.
But apparently that's what's going to be next is that 9 whatever earthquake, the big one that we've been pushing off. Obviously, July is going to be the time because of the way 2020 is rolling.
2020, you're drunk, go home. But to finish.
Oh no, they're just warming up. They're just still pounding tequila shots. Like this is the night's still young for 2020.
So they're not quite white girl wasted. They're not quite white girl wasted. Got it.
We're in
quite literally. It's only halftime.
It really is. It really is.
Yeah. God, we're fucked. But to finish my point, so there's white nationalists out there that have been saying that they want to escalate situations to destroy property and infiltrate the protests in order to accelerate the Civil War. And for them, the Civil War is a race war. And then there are a group of, we'll call them boogie boys, but the people that kind of support the boogaloo. And it's kind of a weird mishmash from everything that I've read, from everything that I've seen. It's kind of a more libertarian leaning group for now. But there are elements within it from white nationalists because of the overlap just between all the groups that funnel all these things. 3%ers. So we'll say, instead of boogie boys, we'll say militia groups. So 3%ers and those sort of things. The Oath Keepers, all those people.
Yeah, whether it's libertarian left or libertarian right, usually that's where you're going to find like the anti-government, almost like the people who are more willing than usual to take up arms against the government. So, I mean, when in America we hear libertarian and we think right wingers usually, but when it comes to something like this, it's just like the whole libertarian spectrum. Yeah. Not that I'm trying to downplay what you're saying. Like it's a lot of people like that out there. Yeah, for sure. And thank you for the clarification. And for everybody else that might be listening to us now or later, I don't want to lump all of those people into the same group. So there's not everybody that's thinking of the boogaloo is going to happen is actually pushing for it to happen. And there was actually a lot, not large, but a very noticeable presence of people that are part of or think of the boogaloo as a thing that's going to happen, or boogie boys or whatever, out supporting the protest against George Floyd's killing. There's a pickup truck. Yeah, pickup trucks, unfurling of the big igloo flag, everything, like a lot of stuff like that. So, and taking it back to Twitter, I saw Nick Fuentes made a comment about how, we're going to get, the black people hate you, we're going to start the boogaloo, and somebody was like, yeah, we got to start the boogaloo or whatever. And so there was, and right underneath that comment, it wasn't in the same thread, but right underneath that comment was a woman that was supporting the boogaloo, because I was just searching up boogaloo, and so I told them to go drag him. So it is for whatever that's worth.
Hold on, I've heard the name Nick Fuentes before. Who's that?
Nick Fuentes is an asshole, right? Well, he's a literal Nazi. He started the website America First. But but he's a
like
literal
a
Nazi.
Nazi.
A literal Nazi.
Oh shit!
Yes.
Oh
Man,
I just
guy.
remembered.
He's like 24.
Okay, I remember.
Yeah, he's the
So
guy who
he,
chased Ben Shapiro down because Ben Shapiro is a Jew, and
Yeah.
he's
okay,
yeah.
He was the guy. He passed. I'm in Davenport, Iowa. He passed out flyers. He did like a thing here, and he put flyers on everyone's door, like white nationalist flyers.
Yep.
Like we talk about implicit and like explicit racism, blah blah blah. This is like comical, like cartoonish racism. It's really funny, awful but funny.
Yeah, he's a giant piece of shit. So if you want to have some fun talking to a giant piece of shit, go ahead and drag him on Twitter.
No, actually, I regret saying his name out loud. Let's not give people like him attention.
Oh, I mean, fair point. So, but anyways, so yeah, those are the three big groups. Does anybody have anything to add? Am I wrong? What and who should we talk about first if I am not?
I mean, these are all just real fringe elements. I think that there's this idea that anytime anything bad happens, because humans are pattern-seeking animals, we like to assume that if X happened, it's because of Y. Like somebody must have sent them to do that if they did it. When in reality, we just have a very large nation with a lot of untreated mental illness, and you just happen to have events that will kick off that will draw these people to it. So I think that trying to think of it in terms of like who do we blame is probably less accurate than just saying we have this phenomena going on, and this is some of the weird like comorbidities that we will have with phenomena like this. You'll just unfortunately, if this happens, you will tend to see that as well, and they're not like planning something together. And again, I mean, I kind of jokingly mentioned Soros, but it's actually a big thing on like right-wing media right now. Yeah. This idea that there are like major efforts underway to move pallets of bricks and place them strategically where riots are going to happen. There's literally people on my next door right now that are doing stuff that I've seen people complain about for like cities in Texas and Seattle and New York, where they're putting these rumors out that Soros is paying for these pallets of bricks for rioters to use to be placed ahead of time. And there's an actual and it's like QAnon adjacent stuff, but it's still very, very common where they really think that there's outside like Antifa is like being paid. All these groups are being paid, like they're actually being deployed and trained and targeted and sent in there. And it's really just kind of a misconception. Yeah, I mean, it's just crazy. But go ahead.
Yeah, no, who it really is, it's those stupid, rich kids is who that's right. It. It's not trained anyone. That's ridiculous.
Wait, the bricks? I think nobody knows where the bricks are coming from. I think.
Oh no, not the bricks. Like the people,
okay.
like the people getting into trouble, basically.
Because I was about to say, I've heard so many conspiracy theories about bricks in the past couple of days. It's insane.
That's what I'm saying.
Like, okay, yeah. So
left
the bricks,
and right everywhere. Like, don't get me wrong. Some of it is suspicious. It's like, but just because it's a little weird or suspicious doesn't mean someone
it's
did
George
that.
Soros.
Yeah. So I'm like, are the bricks even real? Like, or is that just kind of like like because there's yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
There were some piles of bricks found, and it's not like a construction site. It is a weird spot for them to be. It could actually be like it doesn't have to be the government putting there with all these crazy conspiracy theories. Where it could be like. An accelerationist like we were talking about with money who actually put it there, or it could have been actually put there for actual town use for some reason. Like people don't really know, but they're just going nuts with these conspiracy theories.
As an example, in LA, just real quick, in LA, they're taking pictures of it because there were these empty, I don't know how to describe it. Imagine a shopping cart with no wheels, and they're placed, like maybe, like 6 feet apart. And they're basically just barriers that were filled up. And it's basically like almost like anti-IED stuff where you can't drive cars up like onto sidewalks.
Oh, okay.
But the city was like, oh, yeah, like we were putting them there to block like for people from driving. And there's actually like, there was a reason for it. But when people saw it at first, they didn't know what it was for. And they're like, oh, obviously George Soros. And then, after a couple hours, then the city would come out and say, no, we're placing that there to make sure that like you can't drive there. It's just like the easiest way to put an object and then fill it up with something. And it's not like so you have riot size like window smashing because obviously that doesn't help our job to smash our own windows.
It's like insert boogie.
Go ahead.
it's like insert boogeyman here. I saw that one picture or that one video. It was basically cops. They had a pickup truck full of bricks, and they were like either counting them or doing something. They're unloading them, and there's this person videotaping it. The whole time they're like, "Oh my god, we caught them! Oh my god!" And like I was talking about earlier, how it's really easy to pull on our heartstrings. You know how many people saw that shit and just shared it right away? They're like, "We got them, boys!" And meanwhile, it's cops taking evidence. Well, I mean, I can't say for sure, but the explanation that seems to come around from the fact checkers, you know, we'll just call them fact checkers. It's pointing to something that cops are bringing in evidence. They're not planting bricks at all. Like, and also, if the cops are going to be planting this type of evidence, why would they be doing it in their blues? They have all these unmarked officers, all these undercovers everywhere, and they're going to send the boys in blue to do this? Like,
that's
fuck out of here.
There's a lot of that on the left wing going around too, where people will take a picture of some guy in like a gas mask, and they'll say, "Look, it's that guy, but he's really that cop." And they'll like these two pictures together, and it's like it's two big, like random white guys who are like, I mean, that guy's in a mask, and he's like, we can't really tell. And then like, you know, it'll turn out where the cops are like, well, no, the guy's on duty right now. He's over there. Like he couldn't have been over there because he's right there. And they're like, well, so there's a lot of that going on.
I want to clarify this one because we had that stuff happening in our group, and I shut that shit down quick. So for people that might not be aware, we're talking about the guy that was in Minneapolis that was very calmly smashing windows. He was moving with a purpose, and he was very suspect. But the evidence that was linking him to another cop was very shaky. It was a name. And it was I don't recall if the name was even linked to a cop, but people started looking up cops and found a cop with a similar name.
Somebody found his ex-wife, and the ex-wife's like, maybe that's him.
Yeah,
and like they were running with that.
Yeah,
and like the guy breaking those windows, the way he did it was super suspect. Like he wasn't there to loot; he smashed the windows and then strolled off. Like the way he was moving, it was like a guy at work. So that is very, very suspicious. But then everyone's like, "Oh, it's this cop right away." It's like, I mean, maybe. Like why are these people just running with this? It's just it's scary. Like imagine being that guy.
Yeah.
Like he could be the best cop on the earth. He could be like the kind of cop we all crave and desire for all we know. And right away, it's just like whoosh, you know, it's like fuck his life, man.
This is one of those things where
just let me finish. I deleted those comments that people made and was very much like, hey, don't spread these, you know, internet rumors about people because the internet sleuthing is generally more wrong than right. Like, if
this ain't finding Shia LaBeouf.
Yeah, this is.
Oh, that's your best reference yet.
But with the Boston Marathon bombing, like the internet was wrong. Somebody could have gotten killed.
Yeah.
About that one, and so we should be very hesitant to do these things. You know, I know Sean King has been successful about identifying some people, but those pictures were a lot more clear than a guy in a gas mask with an umbrella breaking some windows. Just saying. Dylan, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I was just going to say that, you know, this is one of those cases. People generally believe what they want to believe and they don't let go, right? Even if you can convince them, shake them of the idea of, oh yeah, that guy's definitely a cop. Even if you can change their mind on that, like the general concept will stay with them and it won't change.
And chances are when they're back with their friends, they'll just go right back to that story anyway.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there are, you know, I mentioned rural Iowa. I've seen plenty of people. There were rumors that there were going to be busloads of people going out into rural Iowa to loot and pillage, basically, to break into all these homes. I saw so many people like repeating that, like, you know, and saying that "bring it on" kind of thing. And then, of course, that never fucking happened. Like, no one's driving fucking an hour.
Pay the money to bust people out to destroy
to bust people out into the middle of nowhere, break into cars to steal break into your '97 Corolla to take an old pack of cigarettes or something. Like no one is doing this. But
these are the same people that were afraid that like Al Qaeda was going to blow up their Dairy Queen back in like 2002. Like,
I mean, but like it doesn't matter. You know, that was supposed to happen this past weekend. I spoke to someone about it and said, okay, well, like clearly this was never going to happen and it didn't happen. And they literally said like, okay, well, you say this kind of thing never happens, but it does happen out here. Let me tell you. I'm like, No, it doesn't. It never happens.
Let's say there is some moneyed interest out there who is willing to bus people somewhere to destroy something. It's not going to be Iowa. It's not going to be Iowa.
Iowa is where real people live, Mateo. This is
real Americans.
This is real America. So
I really wanted to drop a college football joke. Texas Longhorns. There we go. Fuck.
Right.
I blew it.
Hey.
Aren't they the ones who hated the Buckeyes or whatever it is? I'm probably mixing up.
Buckeye is Ohio.
Whatever. I don't know. I don't watch the sports ball.
Clearly, none of us watch sports here.
Yeah,
I'm kidding.
I play sports. I don't watch. Well, I don't actually play sports either anymore. I'm just so old and fat.
Okay.
Just to jump in really quick, but they were talking. You remember earlier I read that thing about how Trump said that, the one thing that Obama and I have in common is we both had the pleasure of firing Jim Mattis. Some journalist just replied that you also both had the honor of firing Mike Flynn.
Nice.
Good one.
Just
yeah.
Those are those things that I feel good about for exactly 3 seconds, and then I feel bad about it because this is where we are.
This is where we are.
Oh, we take the pleasure where we can get it.
Is there's people out there who when I complain about Trump, instead of maybe thinking about it a little bit, they'll just be like, well, this guy's obviously a liberal or something. They just can't fathom why someone would be against him, even a little bit, I'm not one of these rabid anti-Trump people. And I'll even be treated like, oh, okay, yeah, sure, of course you'd say that.
Well,
I was going to tie that into
everyone does that.
Clearly,
everyone
you're a bearded white guy, so that makes you a leftist for some reason.
In a V-neck, bearded white guy in a V-neck.
In the Obama years, I was always a socialist. I don't know if you guys really knew me back then, but I was constantly being called a socialist because the whole argument was against stimulus and shit. Somehow QE is going to cause inflation and shit. So got to be the socialist. Then only a socialist would support that.
God, we need an episode on economics again. I missed that.
I would love to cover quantitative easing on some maybe QE anniversary or something.
That would be great.
Off the topic that would put everyone to sleep.
Maybe we have an episode.
I love that shit.
Okay.
But go ahead.
I'm going to drop this into chat real quick, but there's somebody who's sharing this thing about these rock barriers that are on the street, and they're like, if you see this in our town, you need to report this. It's just like a street, bench on the street, and then there's these wire cages that are filled with rocks. And somebody comes back and they're like, yeah, that's the protection for the Jewish Community Center in Sherman Oaks, and it's been there for over a year. It's just to make sure that you can't drive on the sidewalk and like attack the building. But it looks a little weird when there's no context, and you're like, oh, yeah. Wow, that's a weird box of rocks. And then one after the other, it's just being put along the street. But it's just so you can't drive through and run over people.
Mateo, I don't know if you're aware or not, but we lost your video. All right, guess he's away. Okay. So we should probably talk about some of these groups though. So let's go ahead and start with the anarchist, just because it's the order I went in. What's their motivation? What's if they are in fact infiltrating the protest to try to make a point, what's their motivation for it?
Well, anarchy, I guess. It sounds kind of like a joke, but that's really, they just have a real, because anarchists are left libertarians. I was talking about left libertarians before. I think it's really just, they're just anti-authority. They don't realize that you're always going to end up with some sort of power structure anyway. They're just bring it down. It's they don't think really too deep into it.
Fair point. Dylan, you're contemplating?
Yeah, contemplative, sort of. Yeah, these groups, anarchists are one of them. We kind of already covered this, haven't we? I feel like, yeah.
If I mean, if we did, we did.
Unfortunately, we're just stuck with anarchists. Once people get it in their head that the government's the whole problem and like life would be great if we just like all were voluntary and just kind of got along and it was all good. Like, unfortunately, that's like it's catastrophically stupid. But people that get that in their head, you can never persuade them out of it. Like, it's just this weird irrational thing where they think that like, no, everyone would get along if it wasn't for government. They're just turning us against each other. They're bad. Like, people are they're great and they get along. Like, I don't know. It's just freaking stupid. But like, unfortunately, there's always, and again, in a country that's 330 million people, it doesn't take very many people who are just, I mean, hardcore weapons grade stupid to really cause trouble because they've just got this idiot idea in their head and you can't talk them out of it. And they don't get it and they're not going to get it.
Right.
And we're just stuck with them.
If 1 in 1 million people are serial killers, that means there are 350 serial killers in the U.S.
Exactly. I mean, and this is a numbers game. We're just too big on this scale. We're just going to wind up with a decent amount of really wacko people. It just is what it is.
And we have a pretty healthy anti-government tradition, I'll call it, to begin with. So it's like it's a very American thing too.
And our government is a bunch of morons. So it's really easy to be anti-government because the government helps by being how they are. It's not entirely irrational to be anti-government.
That's my problem with how the police are handling this. Like, I mean, if you see all these people like the cops need to stop doing all the shit, and like they're just shooting people in the face with beanbags, it's like, I mean, how did that guy? First off, how does that guy even feed himself? That's so like, you got to be a real fucking moron to be like, oh yeah, look at this child there just standing. I got this. Like, what brain does that? Like, how's an adult brain do that?
So I think Mateo and Art, you both just talked about two very blatant self-fulfilling prophecies, right? Police responding to protests against police brutality with police brutality, and anti-government people being anti-government in a democracy, right? In which it's easy to be anti-government. So it's if you more people supporting people who are anti-government means your government's probably not going to work very well, and comps responding to protests like that is probably going to lead to more protests.
Fair point. So do we have any proof of these anarchists, or we'll just say all the groups? Do we have any proof that any of these groups are actually going around and escalating things, or is it kind of just all hearsay based on, I don't know, internet sleuthing?
Okay, so for the most part, we're not really ever going to know. I mean, we don't have the identities for most of these people, and it doesn't really matter. It's just a fucking numbers game. These groups exist. They have existed for years. We know about them. They've done shit, and it's not like they're not going to be. They're not AWOL right now. It's not like they've vanished into the air. They're still out there, and of course, depending on the environment, right? What's the environment they're in? The environment that we're all in right now. This is a fucking holiday for them. So of course they're going to be out there. Can we pinpoint exactly who? No. Should we try to? No, not really. Doesn't matter. That's not the point. And this is again one of those things that I was talking about earlier, where we have to examine kind of inevitable consequences of our actions and marginal cost versus marginal benefit when we're talking about protesting, and when we're talking about police brutality. That's where it starts.
Yeah, there's only so much we could know as far as who's doing what. I mean, it's easy to assume it. I have no trouble believing these people are out there in it, but as far as what they're doing and specifics, we can't say.
Okay, no, that makes a lot of sense. Do you think there have been some arrest with some of the more egregious things that have happened? A historic courthouse was burnt to the ground in Tennessee, Nashville. Do you think if it's proven that any of these groups were involved, do you think, and this kind of ties into the question that Beasley just asked, do we think they should be considered terrorist groups by the U.S. government?
No, because they're domestic groups. No, I don't. They should be terrorists, not in any legal sense. No, of course not.
Wouldn't it be a domestic terrorism group if it was? I mean, I feel like they don't we have that? Like a lot of white supremacist groups, they're like domestic terrorist groups.
No, just hold them accountable for their actions.
I can explain the legality
Yeah.
when you're done, but the answer is
Yeah,
no.
go ahead, Art.
No, Dylan, could you just repeat yourself because you guys both talked at the same time. Just want to make sure people heard your point.
Yeah, no. So I was just saying. I mean, they're citizens. If they commit a crime, like they can be charged for the crime. Terrorism it's a completely separate thing, but I'm sure Art can elaborate on that further.
Oh yeah, no, I don't think they should be considered terrorists. I'm just saying, you said no because they're domestic, and I was like, I didn't think that was like where the line is drawn.
It's not like a hard line, but there's definitely different qualifiers. Go ahead, Art.
Yeah, Art, please get into it.
Oh, okay. It's Section 219 of the what is it? Immigration and Nationality Act of 1997, 1996, something like that. Long story short, you have a foreign terrorist organization designation that the State Department can put against a group. So you can say like Al Qaeda or the there's Abu Sayyaf group, any range of groups that you could say membership in this group makes that you are a foreign terrorist group, which gives us options against any government that sponsors them, but also when attached to the authorization for military force in 2001 or any of the subsequent reauthorizations, it basically means that we can kill you if we think you're part of this group, and we can add you to the kind of the master kill list that we've run. I'm going to turn some lights on because it just got really dark in here. So there is no equivalent structure like that for the U.S. as far as like anything internal. So what used to happen is like, and this happened with Dylan Roof, the guy that shot up the school, but it's happened for a lot of different foreign issues where the Department of Justice will just call somebody a foreign, like a domestic terrorist, but doesn't actually have any legal weight. Like, it's just one of those things where they got so tired of saying, well, how come Dylan Roof's not a foreign terror or he's not a terrorist? So they were just like, oh, okay, we'll just call him a terrorist. And it doesn't actually mean anything other than the state says it. But like with the, what like the Section 219 of the Immigration and Nationality Act, there really is like weight behind it. Like that matters. Like if you're part of a group designated by that, the U.S. has legal leverage that they didn't have before. Whereas in the U.S., if you're just some domestic guy that just commits a crime, they'll call you a foreign terrorist just because they don't want the media to whine at them, but it doesn't mean anything.
There's all. Go ahead, Dylan. Was somebody going to say something? I'm sorry.
No, I just said yeah.
Oh, okay. So there's other things with that as well. As everybody knows, we have the First Amendment. The First Amendment makes it to where you can't. I mean, okay, maybe not everybody knows, but the First Amendment includes free association, and the government is generally prevented from labeling membership of a group to be a crime. There's been some people I've interacted with on the internet that tries to say, RICO laws kind of circumvent that to a degree, and people were just arrested for being simple members of some sort of organization like biker gangs or the mafia or whatever. But generally speaking, that is an addition charge to whatever they are charged with. So, for example, an accountant that works for the mob is aiding and abetting criminal activity. Ergo, they get arrested and charged in RICO for that aiding and abetting of criminal activity, but not membership of the group. You see it with gang affiliations within, states. LA tried to LA in the 90s had a very big gang task force. They probably still do. Nikki, could you mute yourself? I'm coming through your speakers. Nikki, I'm gonna mute you if you can just message me when you're not muted, when you have it fixed. Sorry, guys. So as I was saying, being a member of a gang, itself is not illegal, but participating in any criminal activity within that game, it can get charged as an extra charge. Not only did you do something, but you committed a crime while being in a criminal organization. And if we go through and start saying, hey, these political organizations or these groups are in of themselves illegal, you're going to have a lot. And let's assume that it's upheld legally for whatever reason. You're going to have a lot of groups just be rolled up in that, and people that didn't do anything wrong, they just had Antifa in their name for the question McBeasley asked, or hey, this is a prime example. Tea Party groups were given extra scrutiny by the IRS and for their tax exemption status because, let's be real, a lot of them were violating it, but a lot of left organizations did too. But that was also seen as untoward by the courts and legal system, so that was also not allowed. So yeah, just that's where I am at with that. So do we think? But do we think? Oh, never mind. I'm gonna have to keep Nikki muted. Oh, never mind.
Mute her.
Yeah.
Sorry, Nikki.
Yeah, sorry. Oh, dang it. Sorry, guys. There we go. So yeah, that's the primary issue with that. But for that, but in addition to that, though, do we think, like, if it's proven this guy was in any of these groups, do we think that should renew interest in going after these groups legally for at least monitoring, because that's something that you're allowed to do, or infiltrating and keeping eyes on them?
Wait, what?
So the guy that there was an arrest made this is the big example because it's one of the ones that I know of. An individual was arrested for burning the historic courthouse in Nashville, Tennessee.
Oh, right.
If it's proven that he was a member of one of these organizations or an organization that was trying to participate in this planning or whatever, and not just like some random rioter that's like, fuck it, burn the courthouse down, fuck the system, man. Like, do you think it should be these groups should have extra monitoring being applied to them?
Well, yeah. I mean, the thing is that you have these urban areas where you've got 10 to 20 cameras, per side of the street everywhere. Like, all of this stuff's gonna get analyzed over the coming weeks and months. Arrest after arrest after arrest is going to happen. They're just going to identify these people. They're going to see, they probably have electronics on them that can be tracked. There's going to be a lot of identifying down the road where they just figure out what was going on. And then you'll get a pattern and see, okay, based off of the people that we identified later on, it turns out that, hey, 30% of them were Antifa. 2% of them were like Identity Europa, like whatever. Like you'll start to get a pattern and say, but a lot of these guys, 50% were just random wackos. Like, we have no idea who they are, what they're with. So yeah, right now we're just guessing. Later on, once a lot of this stuff gets analyzed, like, people, I don't, like, it just blows my mind watching some of these videos and they're like, man, like, I'm like, I'm watching it. Like, I'm not even looking for you. And like,
yeah.
Like, you guys are putting it on TikTok, like, intentionally. Like, you guys realize what you're doing? Like, it's not that hard, especially these days, with the facial recognition. If your phone knows who you are, the cops are going to know who you are. I mean, that's not even get into some of the projects that the police are working on, that, it's sort of experimental right now, but not very, where they'll just take pictures of you and figure out who you are, just run it through the database. Like, we are so close to just being able to know, just by like a grainy ass random photo, who anybody is at any given time. Like, we are almost right there. And even if we're not there right now, if it takes another year for them to figure it out, they're going to find you. So like, we'll figure out who these guys are.
All you have to do.
Let me say my joke.
Sorry.
Eventually we'll have face back, but it's all good.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. We'll know. Dylan?
Go ahead, Dylan. I'm sorry.
Face back? What the?
The other guys.
I don't know what that is.
Well,
okay.
You must not have seen that one.
It's all good.
Wait. Okay. No, I lost my point. Oh wait, that was the movie where The Rock and Samuel L. Jackson jump off the roof.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Aim for the bushes.
Yeah. Splat.
But
Oh, great.
those people basically getting themselves in trouble. Like there's a lot of people who do that. It's called self-snitching. There are people who like live stream their crimes. Like they'll jack a car and they'll the whole time just be like talking and like laughing about it. And it's like it's actually pretty entertaining, even though a serious crime is going on. Like just the way
Art, your video's broken. There it goes. Go ahead.
That was great though.
The way it goes on, like you can't help but laugh. It is funny to see this guy who's just pumped as hell, stole a car, and like cops are chasing him, and he's just like laughing about it, even though it's a serious, horrible crime.
Yeah,
it's almost like a comedy show. But these people it's self-snitching, man. They're just telling on themselves. It's like this guy's streaming from his Facebook page. Like it's not like some anonymous YouTube account. It's like this guy's just telling on himself.
Right. And with the guy that was arrested at the courthouse, he wasn't even masked up. Like they caught him because he was like this. Or hold on, where's the camera? He was like this on the video, and he was like shirtless. He had identifying tattoos all over his body, and like
yes,
like,
yes.
Dude,
check the link I put in there. Check the link I put in the chat. This is what I wish it looked like.
Oh God. Oh, man.
It was she started this fire, man. And she was like, "I'm gonna burn this mother down." Well, she said it was an electrical fire. Yeah, man, total electrical fire. There's sparks flying out.
That's fucking great.
Wow.
Rap snitches, man. Telling all their business.
But do you think that though? Do you think we should? Target these groups for infiltration, for monitoring, like the FBI has done in the past, if it's proven that if we can get definitive proof.
If there's reason to believe that they're organizing for something and, they can get a warrant to do it, go for it, investigate, but if they're violating rights in the process, then no.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, regardless, they still have to be complicit in a crime, right? Even if it's accessory to something, that it's still an accessory to something, right? Membership cannot be the crime itself.
Yeah, there has to be like something there. They shouldn't just be like, I mean, there would have to be some like real probable cause to go and look at these people for their membership. I mean, I can't even think of anything if there even is one.
I mean, membership can be probable cause if the point of the group, right, is to commit a crime. Like that's probable cause, but that's not enough to charge anyone.
It's certainly enough to surveil
enough
them.
to
for sure
start looking. C. DeVille said Antifa isn't really a group, and I think that's actually important because they really are decentralized and disorganized, and a lot of it is just people.
It's more
claiming,
lifestyle,
That's
yeah.
right.
I mean, it's a joke, but it's a lifestyle. It's not really a group.
Like some people take it super seriously, and then they're like, the libertarian leftists I was talking about, and then you got like other people who they just don't like fascism, and they'll call themselves Antifa. So it's really difficult to talk about these groups of people as like one Antifa organization because it's just not it. It's just people laying claim to it almost at random sometimes.
Right.
Yeah. It's I agree with your broad idea, so I'm going to say I'm also part of this movement, right? like if you changed your
I mean, it is broad enough.
Yeah,
to where anyone really can say I mean, who isn't against fascism here? I mean, it's if you want to be super literal,
it's like if you put like maybe had a temporary Facebook profile photo with like an Antifa thing, like at some point, like does that mean you're Antifa? Like
yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
I mean, there's
weird.
tons of people who have done that, and it's a mess. It's not a real group. Like I was getting at it earlier. Black Bloc is a little more. There's a little more like form to it, you could actually
but that's still also not like an organized group. That's just that's
True.
It's a tactic.
I'm just saying relative to Antifa, they're a little more definable.
It's a style of clothing is what it really is.
Now that said, this is actually very, very similar to how actual like quote unquote terrorists like Sunni extremist groups operate, where you have like Al Qaeda in Iraq, but you could also have like 1920s Revolutionary Brigade or like all kinds of different groups who are like Ansar al-Sunnah, who you're kind of more like sort of socially affiliated more than like you get an identity card. You don't get like a uniform. You don't get like a discount. Like there's no like there isn't like a paperwork trail. A lot of these guys just kind of like self-identify, and then they sort of drift to other groups because they know a guy and they kind of like them better and all that. So, like for us, we think of like order of battle, like almost like Cold War, like, Soviet tank division. You're going to have like, logistics here, like armor. You're going to have like a very, very strict hierarchy, and you're either part of the organization or you're not. And that's not the case for your decentralized modern day, like asymmetric terrorist groups. You're going to have this very free floating kind of an ideological association that's also very social, and it can drift. And a lot of times just personality conflicts is going to be what's going to drive things to split, where they're just like, oh, that guy's like too hardcore. He's not hardcore enough, whatever. And they'll kind of branch off, but there's never any kind of formal disillusion. It's just a weird social animal. So, in a certain sense, Antifa is not much different than Al Qaeda. And obviously, I don't mean what I just meant by that. But it's just a social grouping. It's not like a formal structure, like and like a right wing militia, for instance, or like a clan, where like you actually would have a hierarchy. You can't just be like sort of part of a militia. You're either in the militia or you're not. Like they're going to have membership. You're going to have some kind of like, either an in or out status with them. But it's not the case with Antifa, and it's not the case with certain groups. So it really does vary depending on who you're talking about.
No, for sure. Like specifically with the 3%ers, they have a national command structure. Like
and they're not playing like you don't just pretend to be with them.
Yeah. Oath Keepers are kind of a little different, but yeah.
But they still have a membership list. Like an Oath Keeper, like they'll give you a card. Like they'll mail you a card.
Yep. For people who don't know,
wait, was that? This, right?
I've seen the card. Like it's
Oh yeah, in person, like in your own wallet.
Oh, man.
I mean,
okay. I have to disclaim that was a joke.
I'll be honest about this. So when before I joined the military, before I joined the military,
right?
Let me finish. But before I joined the military, and
we'll just stop right there. That's it. Sorry.
I hate you all. Can't get a word in edgewise on my own damn podcast.
Not your podcast.
Our podcast, whatever.
It's actually Sean's podcast.
Yeah,
we're just living in
show.
Yeah, the paperwork's being finalized tonight.
I say anything. I just sit here and watch you guys.
Yeah, he's supervising.
But
making sure we stay in line.
For sure. But as I was saying, so when I was a young boy, before I wised up, I was looking into different groups to try to see what was out there, and the Oath Keepers actually caught my attention, and this was before. Can you not hear me?
Oh, we can hear you.
Dylan's mouthing in the background, so I don't know what he's saying. Anyways, before I knew what was what, they were actually caught my attention. So I actually talked to him a decent amount, like in 2008 or so. But I don't even know. 3 months later, I like saw their message boards and I'm like, okay, no, they're shady as fuck. So
what drew you to them, if I may ask? Why did you talk to them?
So their mission statement and stuff is actually very blasé. It's just basically like you former military or former police officers all take a swear oath and allegiance to the Constitution, and that's what their group was about. It's very, very just like, if basically the Oath Keepers basically is like, if anything pops off and the federal government's wrong or the government's wrong, we'll be there to help defend citizens against the aggression.
Basically, they say the Constitution is not up for interpretation, then use their interpretation of the Constitution to say what's what. It's asinine.
It is. And like I said, this is when I was a young boy kind of thing.
Oh, yeah, no, I'm not trying to say anything. Yeah, I'm just like, the logic of these people, it's a little weird. It's so bizarre.
And if you know nothing else about them and that's all you know, then you probably will think, oh, this group isn't necessarily that bad. But then you get to know the
I
members.
like the Constitution. Oh, why wouldn't I like this group?
Right.
You like the Constitution, and you like the
I was just
Constitution.
gonna say, like,
yeah, go ahead, Art. Sorry.
On the surface level, the sales pitch isn't bad. I mean, there's some, like retired SF guys from First Group that used to be around like Seattle, and that's kind of a thing where you get guys who will get out, they'll kind of get settled. It doesn't really work. And now there are some people who are like active military or police that will be part of that, but they got to keep it quiet.
Yeah.
But it's usually people who are a little bit on the periphery who will be a lot more open about it. And like the pitch isn't bad because it does sound like, hey, like you guys know that like the government's doing bad stuff and they're getting away from the Constitution, and when it goes wrong, we'll be there to set it right. Yeah. And like at a real like superficial level, if you don't think too hard about it, and if they don't get too deep into it, it's like, oh well, that actually sounds pretty reasonable. Fuck yeah, George Washington.
Yeah.
But that's just it. Like once you get a little bit deeper into it, you're like, oh, this actually kind of sounds really like I should not get involved.
Yeah,
but as a surface level,
say again.
As a staunch supporter of the Constitution, I'm going to say the Supreme Court is full of shit at random.
Right? Yeah.
Well, that was the usurpation of power, right? Like,
probably. Actually, when the courts got what was it, standard review or something? There is actually an argument there, but it's a bad argument.
Judicial review.
Judicial review. Sorry, I said standard review.
Right.
Yeah. Some people think
Standard Review, is that like a conservative newsletter?
Yes, the Weekly Standard.
Is it? Sure, we'll go with that.
Nikki, just for your FYI, you are still muted on my end. You're going to have to private message me either on Facebook or in Discord in order to get unmuted. So we know your issue's fixed. We were just getting a ton of feedback.
So real quick, Virginia Governor Ralph Northam will announce on Thursday plans to remove a statue honoring Confederate General Robert E. Lee from Richmond's historic Monument Avenue. Move will come amidst national reckoning with America's complicated racial history. So that particular statue, if you guys know anyone from Virginia, that's a big fucking deal.
That's a huge deal.
And that's in the heart of the capital of the old Confederacy. So that,
like, I love when these municipalities take down these statues. Like, I have people who will tell me, they're like, yeah, but what about the history? It's like, what about it, man? That thing is not, they're not destroying it. It's going to be in a private museum somewhere. Like, it's just not going to be glorified by the state. Like, we're talking about people who fought against us in the Civil War.
Right.
It's some of the most absurd shit. It's like pick and choose when you want to be a fucking contrarian, because you just look like an idiot defending these statues.
For sure.
Like,
at the same time, I'm also kind of like, okay, so the goal of these protests is not to get statues taken down. Like, it's a nice gesture, symbolic. But it's a nice gesture.
True. I'm just a big fan of any Confederate symbolism being removed.
And on that point, so am I. I was actually I would still say kind of, not very much actively participating in, though, Deconfederate Austin in Texas.
I thought you were going to say the Oath Keepers.
Oh, no, for sure. Like, no. My exploration of the Oath Keepers went about as long as my exploration of libertarians, and I hated them both for the same reason. So, they can get fucked. No, Art.
We'll work on you.
You've got a left libertarian and a right libertarian on this podcast, I think. I don't even know what Sean is.
Okay, when I say libertarian,
Sean's mercurial.
When I say libertarian, I mean the kind of people that go to like Libertarian Party meetings and then on the down low will be like, yeah, but black people
capital
suck.
L.
Yeah, capital L. Like not the smaller lowercase L, although some of them will say, oh, I'm a lowercase L, and then just be full of shit.
Shout out John McAfee
in your underwear.
The libertarian to fascist and socialist pipeline are real. One of them's just bigger, so we'll just leave it at that. But yeah, sorry, I forgot where we're going. Oh, right. I'm actually a member of Deconfederate Austin, so I'm very much in support of getting rid of Confederate iconography wherever it is.
And another thing that bothers me about people who defend these statues, it's like they make it like into a thing of patriotism. Like do you not see? Like they just pull out whatever argument they have out of their ass to try to defend these things, because they don't even know why they're defending it. Like they'll be like, oh, well, you just don't have any respect for this nation's history. It's like, that's literally the opposite of what's going on here.
Let me tell you this argument that I've had on Twitter about 10 to 15 times over the last week. Is people were like, so Democrats are the party of slavery. Oh, And I'll be like, oh, okay, yeah, Democrats are the party of slavery. The party of switch. No, they didn't. They're all the same. Okay, so you think the Democrats are the party of slavery and they're still the party of slavery. They're all the same. Yeah. Okay, and you don't believe that the just Southern white conservatives just happen to change what party they're with. No. Okay, can we take our statues down? Well, no. I'm like, well, why not? Like, well, because it's history. I'm like, okay, well, the statues are like fake history. Like they were put up like a couple decades ago. And they're mine. Like I'm, like the Democrat statues. Like if I want to take them down, then like why can't I? Well, you can't do that. I'm like, oh, okay. How about we just change the plaque and we'll say these men were traitors? Like I just want to apologize to you Republicans for all the stuff that these slave owning Democrats did. So can we do that? Well, no. I'm like, okay, well, I really feel like they're your statues and that everything that you just said to me was a lie. So how about that? Like I've had this same conversation like over and over and over again. Well, they think it's the funniest thing to say that, oh, Democrats are the party of slavery. And then we run through this whole process where I go to the, okay, can I take my statue down?
Yeah, well, when you have a sixth grade education in American history, once you hear Democrats were slave drivers, these people, they're like, I finally figured it out.
Got him!
The argument that's going to help me.
Got him!
Got to get off the Democratic plantation. Yeah, shut the fuck up.
I love that one.
That one's, they say it all the fucking time, dude, and they say it to black people too, and it's abhorrent, and it needs.
Oh, they pay Candace Owen to say that. That's like her meal ticket. Like I think every time she says that, she makes a car payment.
She maybe a little more than a car payment. She's got big money bags behind her, so.
I don't know. I think what she's saying is a little different than any of that. I think she's that's a very successful political maneuvering, and it's just something the Democrats have had a monopoly on. But I don't know. I just don't think it ties in as much. But that's another whole other story.
We could talk about
podcast
that.
We could do.
We'll put that on another show.
I would actually.
Dylan pieced out.
Candace Owens is kind of a touchy subject for him.
Did he?
I'm sure he'll be right back. Hey, welcome back, Nikki. How's it going?
I actually
all of a sudden out of nowhere I have lights and I have air and apparently I have internet. It's very weird, but okay, I'm here.
Welcome back.
Jersey's moving on up.
Welcome back, Dylan. I do have to go walk my dog. I can leave the streaming while you all are here.
Your dog is very high maintenance.
Well, I mean,
he's walking his dog.
It's worth it.
Oh, all right. Never mind. You have fun then.
But I can leave it streaming if you guys want. If you guys want. So.
He has to go return some videos.
Sure. But no, like seriously though, if you guys want to keep streaming, do you guys want to keep streaming? If not, we can wrap it up here.
I'm pretty tired. I'm gonna head off also.
Yeah, I'm good.
It's about 2 hours.
Yeah. Okay.
We've successfully educated the people. Thank you for joining us, people.
Thank you. One of our mission statements.
What was that guy's name?
You could pick up your Hawaii shirts for the luau at crowdsourcedpolitics.org.
In all seriousness, though, we do have our own website. It's kind of just right now hosting our podcast. Dylan's freaking out. What's up with that?
We have our own website since when?
No, we have our own domain. The website's not. We don't have a server space. Anyways, it's just hosting our podcast right now, which is crowdsourcedpolitics.org. So if you want to check out, if you like what you heard here and you want to check out the podcast, go ahead and go there and you can check it out there or any of your streaming services. We are also going to be live this Sunday at, I want to say 7 p.m. Eastern. I'm pretty sure it's 7 p.m. Eastern. And we'll talk about basically news events and anything that's happened over the last couple of weeks. We covered some of that here today, but we'll get more expansive on that. So go ahead and check us out on Sunday. And does anybody have a final thought they want to share with everybody that's here? All right. Well, go ahead.
Happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there, since I don't know if we're going to be doing another show.
Oh, that's wholesome.
I know, it is wholesome. We got to be...
quality, wholesome content people log into us for.
Thanks to the father. Good on you.
Happy Father's Day, Dad.
Happy Father's Day, Dad, as well. But everybody, with that, like always, keep your head up through the political storm.
Never mind.
Go ahead.
Oh, nothing. Just my daughter's in like a nuclear engineering school right now, and she made some kind of valve lineup joke that I didn't understand. But I'm like, we used to make like Chinese pun jokes in linguist school, so like it's just a nerd life thing. I don't know.
That's what's up. That's awesome.
That's cool. Nerd life. All right, everybody, keep your head up for your political storm, guys.